Welcome back, everyone. We're going to proceed to our second session. As I noted at the end of the closing remarks, Caribbean Export commissioned a study to explore the tangible opportunities of the CARIFORUM-UK for expanding trade and investment and offer perspectives on potential benefits of the agreement to the private sector. The study was executed by Ms. Keisha Ann Thompson, who is here with us this morning to give a presentation on the findings of the study. Please note that the study is available for download on Caribbean Export's website. The link will be placed in the chat, so feel free to download and review. Just a bit about Keisha Ann. Keisha Ann is an attorney at law and international trade law and an economics consultant with over 15 years experience working on WTO law, regional trade agreements, customs, and trade facilitation issues. She is barred to practice law in Jamaica and is a member of the Jamaica Bar Association and the Caribbean branch of international law. She's also a member of the Society for International Economics Law. So, Keisha, I will now turn it over to you to execute your presentation on the study. Just before Keisha jumps in, we will be taking question and answers, so feel free to type your questions in the chat feature. If you are on Facebook, you can put it in the chat and we will make sure that it gets to Keisha so that she can answer. So, Keisha, over to you.
Thank you, Damien. Good day to everyone, distinguished guests, panelists, and participants from all over the world, I see. This morning, as Damien indicated, I'll be attempting to provide you with some highlights from the study that was commissioned by Caribbean Export, very timely indeed. And the study is quite a document. It's over 300 pages. So I have quite a task this morning to be able to condense it for you in just a few minutes. So, however, I'll try my best. Firstly, we look at the objectives and then give a little bit of context in regards to the UK CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement and how this came about. As well as, importantly, we'll be looking at some of the characteristics, and our other panelists this morning have spoken to a lot of the issues in relation to trade and ensuring that agreements can work for our countries in the region. And so we'll look at the characteristics of CARIFORUM-UK trade over the period 2008 to 2020. And we believe that this is a very important baseline, and it will establish a critical point of departure and analysis for what comes next in relation to the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. And then, of course, I will look at some of the opportunities for CARIFORUM and the UK under the agreement and suggest some areas of cooperation that we believe will be beneficial and ensure that the agreement actually works for the countries in the region. And then I will conclude. Now, to jump into the presentation, I'll turn off my video for a while, so just so that we don't have any interruptions, and then I'll jump right back in. So, in terms of the objectives of the study, as I mentioned, we have to establish a proper context going forward. We have to understand where it is that we actually are at and then move forward from there. Now, in terms of the study, what we did was we drew on all the available data and information that we could gather to really hit on two, or at least achieve two main objectives. One, the complete review or full review of the opportunities and challenges under the UK EPA, as well as, importantly, to consider how the EPA can increase sustainable and inclusive trade, very important in today's context, as well as noting those barriers that can impede this. In terms of the context, so we all know we're at this juncture here now, given the departure from the European Union. Now, it was felt, and of course, we're at this juncture now, as I indicated, because there is an important need to continue the trading relationship with the UK, given our historic ties and our long-standing trade relationship. As different participants have mentioned this morning, the trade amounts to about around approximates about 3 billion pounds. This is as at 2020 data. Now, the UK is an important destination market for some CARIFORUM countries, in particular in relation to our traditional products and, of course, tourism. Now, there have been many developments since the signing of the CARIFORUM EU EPA in 2008. And so even though the CARIFORUM-UK EPA is a continuity agreement, the future prospects may indeed be very different. And this is why the agreement is so critical at this point in time and demands exploration and interrogation. The development dimension, as mentioned previously, is a very key aspect of this trading arrangement. And it was felt, as we all in the region know, that the agreement necessarily, the original EPA, right, if I can use that term, or let me just say the CARIFORUM EU EPA, did not necessarily, it was felt, deliver the benefits to the region that we had anticipated. And so the CARIFORUM-UK agreement is an opportunity, presents an opportunity to address those issues and potentially create a more level playing field. Now, in terms of the characteristics of CARIFORUM-UK trade, and as I mentioned at the introduction, 2008 to 2020 is a critical juncture. It covers the period after the signing of the CARIFORUM EU EPA, and it goes right up to the period before implementation of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. Even though intervening issues and intervening trends will be important, during that period, it is still a critical starting point from which we will assess where we go from here and where we are at maybe in a few years. Now, the region exhibits an overall trade surplus with the UK in favor of CARIFORUM, but this is largely attributed to services exports. As mentioned earlier by the other speakers, services form an important component of the trade with the UK and vice versa. Now, merchandise trade exhibited a definite downward trend over the period, and data for the first 8 months of 2021 suggests that this is likely to continue, all things being equal. However, it should be noted that there are some CARIFORUM countries that have consistently shown a trade surplus with the UK. In terms of merchandise trade, CARIFORUM had a deficit with the UK at the end of 2020. And this shift actually started to take place significantly around 2015. So that UK exporters, as at the end of 2020 from 2015, have benefited more in terms of trading goods. In terms of services, the picture is more robust where services are concerned. And over the period of analysis, CARIFORUM exporters have therefore benefited more in terms of trading services with the UK. Looking at the characteristics continued, the UK trading patterns have changed. The UK is not a top 5 market for most CARIFORUM partners, but it is still a very important destination market for some of our major exports and also for some of our CARIFORUM partners. CARIFORUM countries exhibit increased trade partner diversification. And in terms of the pattern of trade, as mentioned earlier, CARIFORUM countries are very well integrated in the global economy. But one of the things that stood out for us when examining the data in the study is that when you look at 2008 versus 2020, there are some countries over the period that have actually become less integrated into the global economy. And so these are some of the issues that we need to pay attention to in looking at how the gains are distributed from the from the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. and continuing characteristics again, and this will come as no surprise for those of us in the region. The region is not homogeneous. It is not homogeneous in terms of our comparative advantage, as well as in terms of our productive capacity. When we look at the data, different elements of that drive productive capacity are more important to some countries than to other countries. But however, importantly, what stands out from our empirical analysis is that human capital is the dimension of productive capacity that is actually the most important for the region and significantly correlated with trade performance. In terms of export diversification, the region shows that its exports are concentrated. The data shows that the region's exports are concentrated in a few products, and it clusters around a certain band, and this band has actually remained very stable over the period 2008 to 2020, suggesting that structural characteristics of our CARIFORUM economies may not necessarily have changed much over the period. In terms of exports to the UK, so we're drilling now in this portion of the presentation and looking at some details in relation to the trade. Now, as you can see from the slide, most of our CARIFORUM exports are concentrated in about 11 tariff lines, with 2 standing out, which is edible fruit and nuts and sugars and confectionery in terms of exports to the UK. A trend that we have to consider, however, is that most of our CARIFORUM exports of goods, around 77% in 2020, is actually accounted for by 3 CARIFORUM countries. So again, it suggests that we have to, in going forward, ensure that we look at what may be the relevant impediments in all of the CARIFORUM partner countries to ensure that the gains from trading with the UK are more evenly distributed across the region. In terms of the main goods exports to the UK, and this data is for 2020, we see a sort of shift from the period averages that we looked at previously. And in particular, this could be driven by the effects of the pandemic, because what we see here is that pharmaceuticals exports have become a significant export from CARIFORUM to the UK, as well as inorganic chemicals. And right behind that, even though it's not visible on this slide, if I could say that's maybe a top 6, is also organic chemicals. In terms of the main exports from the UK, it's machinery, mechanical appliances, beverages and spirits, as well as vehicles, electrical machinery, printed books. Now, the main services exports to the UK, as can be imagined, travel dominates, and second, transport services. Now, what is important is to look at, or what is I wouldn't say important, but what is really, what stands out to me from looking at the data is, even though mode 2 stands out, which we would expect given the importance of travel in terms of our services exports, is that mode 1 is also very dominant, which suggests significant opportunities for CARIFORUM service exporters into the UK market. In terms of UK services exports, we see that mode 3 dominates. And what this suggests is that the UK plays a dual role, both as a source of FDI as well as an attractive investment destination. And this compares to the EU 27 overall. Now, what are the opportunities? Well, and this is not, as I said, an exhaustive list, but this is what jumps out to us from the data. So for trading goods, what we see is that, and I have to say here that these trends are still very new, right? January 2021 has not been so far away. And the data, we have to be careful of examining the data based on these short-term month-to-month trends. But one of the things that stands out in looking at the data is that post-Brexit, we see that there has been an increase in non-EU country imports into the UK versus EU imports. Now, as you saw from the previous slide, the data suggests a slight change in demand in the pandemic years. We see pharmaceuticals being factoring very significantly, as well as organic and inorganic chemicals from the CARIFORUM into the UK. Now, something that may be a little controversial or may not be, is that the region may actually stand to benefit in the margins of standards, regimes, regulations that were mentioned previously, because the UK, as was mentioned before, is a global leader in terms of environmental standards. And what we're suggesting is to look at how the region can position itself to gain first mover advantages by building the capacity to meet these standards where it may not be the case, and maybe shift from being, say, fair trade to actually owning maybe the label of green trade. So we could brand our exports in such a way. Of course, this means looking at sustainability issues, looking at sustainable agricultural practices, and ensuring that these things are there. And of course, as mentioned before, any investments into the sector, ensure that these investments are what we would call green investments. And in terms of the regional agenda, this notion of production integration has always been on the regional agenda. And what we see in terms of the data is that there really may be an opportunity for us to develop regional value chains, particularly in agri-food exports, and use this as a stepping stone into the UK value chains as well as global value chains. In terms of opportunities for CARIFORUM into the UK, I don't think I should belabor the point that Mode 4 really, particularly in this time of a pandemic, is really not the main mode of supply. And even though it was felt at the time of conclusion of the CARIFORUM EU EPA that Mode 4 may be one of the modes of supply of services that would have yielded the greatest benefits to the region, what we see from the data is that this may, in fact, and speaking to stakeholders, this may not be the case. What we see is that there is a greater substitutability between the modes of supply brought about by technological advances, again mentioned earlier in the presentation, and the increased platformization, so that it is possible that CARIFORUM service providers can provide a range of services into the UK market, whereas previously studies had showed that we may not have been as competitive into the EU market supplying the service by Mode 4. As I mentioned, there is this degree of substitutability between Mode 1 and Mode 2 that really stands out. Now, the sectors of greatest potential outside of travel fall under other business services, such as, for example, legal, consulting, engineering, medical, of course, always provided that the relevant requirements are met in the destination market. Now, supporting this finding is the fact that UK trade is recognized as having a greater degree of servicification. Now, looking at experimental data for the UK in terms of services trade, we saw that this was in fact the case. So that, for example, where CARIFORUM may not have been able to provide the good, for example, machinery, or maybe Mode 4 into the UK economy because of restrictions on Mode 4, it may be CARIFORUM service providers may be able to provide the service, for example, the technical plans or designs via Mode 1. So this is certainly a significant opportunity. In terms of opportunity for the UK, as we mentioned, UK trade has benefited more. At least the data shows a shift from 2015 into CARIFORUM. Now, there are opportunities for forward linkages in services in areas that would complement agri-food products industry in CARIFORUM, particularly services such as distribution, retail, transport, ICT, particularly given the UK's position as a significant exporter of services. CARIFORUM, as we mentioned before, exhibits a significant degree of diversification and heterogeneity in terms of its comparative advantage. And so there may be untapped opportunities that need to be really explored in terms of each individual CARIFORUM partner. Also, there are significant opportunities for taking advantage of green investments as well as investments in the blue economy. In terms of UK investments into CARIFORUM, we see that certain countries do stand out, which suggests that there are opportunities. Again, as I mentioned, we see this trend in looking at the data of a sort of concentration. And so what this suggests to us is that we have to really pay attention to in terms of how the agreement works, enabling these gains to be distributed wider among the CARIFORUM. Now, bringing it all together, one of the main things that we would suggest that stands out to us in terms of bringing CARIFORUM investment needs and UK investment trends together is that CARIFORUM is an attractive investment destination for the provision of distribution, maintenance, repair, construction, and other business services, as well as financial services that we regard as being transformational services. And these services in particular are very critical to developing global value chains in the area of agri-foods. And so this actually is a very important complement between the UK and the CARIFORUM. Now, developing these value chains is dependent on having rules of origin that will facilitate this. And it is my considered opinion that under the UK CARIFORUM agreement, the rules of origin provisions are flexible enough to support this. In fact, even providing for longer value chains. What is critical, however, is for us to continue to monitor to see how the rules of origin are working in favor of CARIFORUM trade. And so what might result is, of course, the development of regional value chains. And of course, this will dovetail into greater integration into UK value chains as well as global value chains. Now, some of the main areas for cooperation under the agreement that we suggest is looking at capacity building in standards. You'll recall I mentioned these first mover advantages, bringing our standards really up, and in terms of especially environmental issues, because the appetite now is for products that are produced in an environmentally friendly and sustainable way. Also ensuring that we pay attention to rules of origin, in particular accumulation, which itself can impede trade. And so under the agreement, this has to be looked at within the first 5 years. And so we have to really pay attention to that and ensure that it is working for our trade. In terms of another area of cooperation is trade and investment promotion, deepening the linkages, particularly looking at services and how this can complement goods trade. Customs and trade facilitation, again, is very important. And even in respect of the institutions under the EPA, customs and trade facilitation figures very prominently. And in relation to looking at not only addressing maybe impediments at the border, but looking at the capacity of our customs and border regulatory agencies and increasing the cooperation between them. Private sector capacity building is also a very important area of cooperation, as well as to strengthen our BSOs and TSOs to help identify, as Commissioner Knotts mentioned, the opportunities and leverage these opportunities going forward. So therefore, what are some of the main findings from the study? That there are both opportunities for CARIFORUM and the UK, building on existing trade patterns and growth trends. Importantly, recognizing the important role that services can play, even in respect of goods trade. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA, we felt, is a critical enabler or catalyst for developing regional and integrating into global value chains. Of course, this is predicated on rules of origin, the rules of origins being able to facilitate this. Also, the UK is a key source of FDI as well as an attractive investment destination. The substitutability between mode 1 and mode 2 in relation, or the different modes of supply, and mode 1 standing out, suggests significant opportunities for both the UK and CARIFORUM into each other's markets. CARIFORUM heterogeneity, of course, is a significant characteristic of the region, which should not be overlooked and should really be looked at in detail and explored. As well, in terms of facilitating trading services, the UK is one of the least onerous jurisdictions in terms of regulatory restrictions as compared to the OECD averages. The UK is also expected to have more robust standards and environmental regulations. And so there has to be effective cooperation and capacity building in relation to CARIFORUM to be able to take advantage of this. And so what we see is that the CARIFORUM-UK EPA may really be more than just a rollover agreement, right? The opportunities, the future prospects and opportunities may be very different. Given the circumstances of the conclusion of the EPA, as well as where we go forward from here, it really may present significant opportunities, that all of which we are not at this point in time able to say. And so thank you. This brings me to the end of my presentation, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Keisha, for that wonderfully detailed presentation. We are running a bit behind, but we do have a couple of questions that I will pose, but I will ask you if you can answer in as brief as possible, because we want to move to the next session. The first question is coming to us from Facebook. It talks about diaspora engagement, but I will preface the question so it'll be easy for you to answer. What do you see the role of the diaspora playing in terms of this UK CARIFORUM EPA in terms of advancing the UK CARIFORUM EPA? I think you're muted, Keisha.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the question. Well, let me just say, first of all, at the beginning of the relationship with the EU under the original EPA, one of the things it was felt is that the agreement was not well known. There had to be a significant amount of sensitization to the agreement and the benefits of the agreement. So I would say in this context of the CARIFORUM UK Economic Partnership Agreement, that the diaspora can play a significant role in that respect as well, in terms of sensitizing stakeholders to the benefits of the agreement and basically promoting the agreement in that respect, as well as being located in the destination markets. Of course, they can promote CARIFORUM goods, CARIFORUM trade, etc.
Thank you, Keisha. And one more question, 1 minute to answer. Could you provide a brief overview of the four modes? Everybody's sort of asking, so maybe just the Reader's Digest version of what are the four modes of supply for services.
Okay. Well, in terms of services exports, it's in terms of how services are supplied to the market, it's broken down into really four main modes of supply. Mode one being cross-border, so this is like your internet. Mode two being consumption abroad. This is like your tourists traveling to, say, for example, Barbados, to consume the service there. And mode three is, for example, we where the firm locates, right? So that is commercial presence. And mode four is the individual moving to provide the service. So that's your four main modes of supply. And I will not complicate the answer by bringing in an emerging mode, which is mode five, which is what persons are talking about in terms of the service component of goods trade. But the four main modes of supply are those: mode one, mode two, mode three, and mode four.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Keisha. So we will bring an end to this panel. Just to note, the report will be available online at Caribbean Export's website. So I encourage everybody to look forward. If you want us to send it to you directly, please, you can leave your email in the chat and we will definitely send it out to you. So I will now end this panel and I will now turn it over to Dr. Jean-Yves Remy, who is the director of the Sir Sridhar Ramphal Center, University of West Indies, Cave Hill campus, who will take us through our next panel, which will look at implementing this CARIFORUM-UK for trade-related growth and development. Dr. Remy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Damie, and thank you to our partners at Caribbean Export for inviting me to moderate this session. We don't have a lot of time with our esteemed speakers, so I'm going to go quickly into introducing the speakers. Let me just remind all of the persons viewing that this session is looking at implementing the CARIFORUM-UK agreement for trade-related growth and development. And our session is really going to learn and hear from two of the persons, I guess, dealing with the regulatory aspects of that agreement so that they could give us their insights on what are the possibilities built into the agreements for that growth and development. Let me first start by welcoming our first speaker, Mr. Percival Marie, a Dominican national who was trained at the University of the West Indies and has worked at the OECS, as well as in the CARIFORUM Secretariat, but now he currently holds the position of Director General of the CARIFORUM Directorate, situated in the CARICOM Secretariat. Welcome, Mr. Marie. And let me also welcome our second speaker, Mr. Dan Hart, who wears the title of Regional Trade Advisor to the Caribbean. He provides regional leadership for the United Kingdom government on the CARIFORUM-UK Economic Partnership Agreement, working to maximize the benefits of the agreement for the Caribbean and the UK. He is responsible also for the UK's trade-related development projects in the Caribbean. Without further ado, let me invite Mr. Marie to give his remarks, and then we can turn immediately over to Mr. Hart. Over to you, Mr. Marie.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I've been asked to make a short presentation on the general update on EPA implementation. I want to start by taking us back to March 2019, when a number of CARIFORUM states and the UK signed an agreement for an EPA between CARIFORUM states and the UK. All CARIFORUM states, with the exception of Haiti, have now signed the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. The agreement began to be provisionally applied between the UK and those CARIFORUM states which had already signed the agreement with effect from 1st January 2021. 10 CARIFORUM states and the UK have already ratified the agreement. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA was formally notified to the WTO on 31st December 2020. And action has already commenced in terms of the provision of information to the WTO for the preparation of the factual presentation of the agreement. In order to talk about the implementation of this CARIFORUM-UK EPA, one has to have some appreciation of its genesis and its scope. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA was negotiated as a rollover of the CARIFORUM EU EPA, intended to provide for continuity in trade and investments between CARIFORUM and the UK, given the exit of the UK from the EU. It therefore has a scope similar to that of the CARIFORUM EU EPA. The agreement is a trade and development agreement which makes provisions for trade in goods, trade in services and e-commerce, and trade-related issues. It establishes a critical role for dialogue and the fulfillment of mutual obligations and accountability. All CARIFORUM obligations and commitments to the UK and UK obligations and commitments to CARIFORUM previously provided for in the CARIFORUM EU EPA are essentially replicated in the CARIFORUM UK EPA with some minor adjustments. The first area of implementation relates to actions taken to secure the full establishment of the agreement. The CARIFORUM UK EPA incorporates all of the joint institutions in existence under the CARIFORUM EU EPA on 1 January 2021. These are the Joint Council, which is ministerial, a Trade and Development Committee, a Parliamentary Committee, a Consultative Committee, which is civil society, a Special Committee on Customs and Trade Facilitation, a Special Committee on Agriculture and Fisheries, and a Technical Committee on Development Cooperation. There is a joint undertaking that CARIFORUM and the UK would review these committees, these joint committees, to determine which would be retained in a CARIFORUM UK EPA. The technical discussions on that matter have already commenced as part of the implementation process. And the first meeting of the Trade and Development Committee was held on the 7th of October 2021. The first meeting of the Joint Council, which is ministerial, should have been held on the 22nd of November, but was postponed due to circumstances. Consideration of the decision establishing the joint institutions, the rules of procedures, and the structure of these institutions has therefore been deferred as a consequence. One of the initial phases of implementation of the CARIFORUM UK EPA is the exchange of information to facilitate implementation. In that regard, both sides have already notified of their ministerial leads or spokespersons for implementation of the EPA, as well as their lead technical representatives. In the case of the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago provides both ministerial and senior official leads as chair of CARIFORUM. A wide range of operational information has already been exchanged to facilitate implementation of the EPA. These include inquiry points provided for under Article 86 of the agreement, where both sides designate focal points of contacts for inquiries related to trade or investments in order to obtain timely information and responses to inquiries or queries. In respect of technical barriers of trade, information has already also been exchanged on points of contacts for the exchange of information or information on existing regulations, changes in regulations, or difficulties and challenges experienced in exporting arising out of technical barriers to trade. Exchange of information in respect of sanitary and phytosanitary measures have already taken place. Provisions are made for the exchange of information on regulatory authorities, the identification of the authorities, the focal points of contacts, and the regulations which may be of interest to either party. With respect to customs authorities and stamps and movement certificates, information has already been exchanged in respect of stamps and specimen signatures, as well as points of contacts for queries to facilitate smooth import and export of goods. As you're aware, trade liberalization is an important feature of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. The EPA commits the UK and CARIFORUM to extend reciprocal trade preference to each other in accordance with Appendix 1 of Annex 2, which sets out a tariff liberalization schedule which provides for the operation of phased tariff reductions by CARIFORUM states. The UK has already fulfilled its obligation through its implementation of its new global tariff. CARIFORUM states are at varying stages of implementation of the phased tariff reductions on goods imported into CARIFORUM states which originate in the UK. As of today, 3 CARIFORUM states are fully compliant with these obligations in respect of tariff reductions in accordance with the trade liberalization schedule. A number of CARIFORUM states have made tariff cuts but are not yet fully compliant, while some others are yet to make tariff reductions. The first reduction was due from 1st January 2021. The tariff liberalization schedule notwithstanding, trade in goods continues to take place between CARIFORUM and the UK under the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA also calls on CARIFORUM states to remove other duties and charges on imports from the UK which may be discriminatory. Most CARIFORUM states have already honored that obligation, while a few are working towards that goal. The agreement also calls for the removal of duties on goods exported to the UK from CARIFORUM. Almost all CARIFORUM states are honoring that commitment. CARIFORUM exports to the UK continue to face the traditional challenges which existed before the application of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. Our trade in services and investment also continue to be a feature of the current CARIFORUM-UK EPA implementation. The conditions, regulations, obligations, and commitments are similar to those which existed between CARIFORUM and the UK under the CARIFORUM EU EPA. The challenges to CARIFORUM export of services to the UK are coming under more focused attention. As a start towards attempting to reap the benefits of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA, CARIFORUM states have advised of their interest in developing and promoting trade in services in a number of services industries, as well as in the establishment of modalities for regular dialogue on tourism between CARIFORUM and the UK. One of the implementation matters, which is of initial importance to CARIFORUM, is the expeditious establishment and operation of a joint CARIFORUM-UK Special Committee on Services to create a dedicated space in which CARIFORUM and the UK can discuss services issues in order to promote and enhance the bilateral trade in services. There is already agreement to establish such a joint committee, and action is currently being taken to ensure its quick establishment and operation. The CARIFORUM-UK EPA has been in existence only since January 2021, and it is too early to judge its impact. That is not to say that action ought not to be taken based on historical data, past observations, and the learned experience of CARIFORUM-UK trade and development relationship. One aspect of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA on which implementation has already commenced is the provision by the UK of support to CARIFORUM for EPA implementation. Apart from its wider development cooperation arrangements for the Caribbean, some of which relate to the objectives of the EPA, the UK is already providing EPA implementation support to CARIFORUM. A sum of about £2.8 million sterling is currently being made available through a UKTP, UK Trade Program, Caribbean component. Up to 1 million will be made available through CARIFORUM for institutional support, while the International Trade Center is already implementing a trade and market intelligence and an export promotion program. Apart from some of these matters which I have already mentioned in this presentation, there are a few areas which, if given adequate attention, in fact, can facilitate efficient and successful implementation of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. These include, inter alia, consideration for the establishment of a CARIFORUM-UK Business Council to create a dedicated space where the private sector can discuss and deal with trade and investment related issues, developments, and joint strategies and actions. Ensuring that the Joint Parliamentary Committee, when established, or when operational rather, is comprised in such a manner that it can exercise influence in London and in the capitals of CARIFORUM states. Expedited establishment and operation of a special committee on services. Increased levels of direct assistance to CARIFORUM private sector to enable it to take full advantage of the provisions of the EPA. The increased levels of targeted actions on promoting the EPA and in awareness building of the commitments and opportunities of the EPA, both in CARIFORUM and in the UK. As I've indicated, the provisional application of the agreement commenced on 1st January 2021, and that there is not much else that can be said at this point in time on the implementation of the EPA to date. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you, Ms. Marie. That was an excellent exposition because I'm not sure I've heard any exposition in that detail before regarding where things are. So I think it provides a wonderful context for businesses to think about what has actually already happened and what is the possibilities, especially based on your recommendations of where consideration could really be given to improve the insertion of business into this relationship. I'd ask you to also look at the questions that have come, because we may have 2 minutes at the end. There's some questions coming in on SMEs as we wait for Mr. Hart to turn on his video. There's some questions on SMEs. This is a big issue in trade right now, so maybe you can already start thinking about your answers, Mr. Marie, as we welcome Mr. Hart to give his presentation in no more than 10 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It is absolutely wonderful to be here in person. As Jan said earlier, I'm the UK government's regional trade advisor. I am usually based in Kingston, Jamaica, but Barbados has become very much my second home in the region, and it's absolutely wonderful to be back here in person today. It's also lovely to be sharing a platform with Director General Percy Marie and with Janive, two people I work with a lot and for whom I share a great deal of respect. Okay, now let's get into it. So the Director General has just talked us through the nuts and bolts of how UK and CARIFORUM governments are already implementing the UK CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement. But what we've heard very clearly today from Trade Minister Jayawardena and from Jonathan Nott, more needs to be done to translate the EPA into practical living policy, something understood and utilized by its principal users and beneficiaries, businesses. So my plan now is to put a bit more flesh on the bones of that ambition, highlighting the work the UK government is already undertaking, as well as some of our plans ahead. So given the Director General has just talked us through many of the benefits of the EPA, including duty-free, quota-free access into the UK market for CARIFORUM exporters and phased access into CARIFORUM for UK exporters. And given we're short on time, I propose to skip over this section. I think hopefully the benefits are becoming clear to see. So what I did want to say is what this translates into. So all of those benefits, that market access, this provides competitive advantage over exporters from other countries where trade agreements are not in place. That really is the bottom line for businesses. More broadly, the EPA in one way is about legal protections and certainties for business. And as an international treaty, that is certainly its role as a backstop. But as the comprehensive amount of government-to-government dialogue that the Director General has just indicated, more importantly, the EPA is a partnership agreement. It's a symbol of confidence that our governments have put in one another, that they will cooperate and partner to enable and remove barriers to trade and investment between us. Now, some of you familiar with the EU EPA may be wondering why a number of speakers today have gone into such well-trodden territory in talking about the benefits of the EPA. It is because that while the benefits are there to be taken, too many businesses are currently missing out on them. Just some quick data on this. So the EPA utilization rate, what we call the utilization rate, this is the proportion of businesses that could be using the EPA that are actually using the EPA. Now, the most recent data we have is that the average utilization rate across CARIFORUM states for, so this is for year 2019, was only at 77%. But even this number is dominated by certain goods and certain countries, particularly traditional agricultural goods. Now, of course, those sectors are very important to UK Caribbean trade, but we believe a large proportion of smaller companies in other sectors are not accessing the benefits that they're entitled to. Indeed, one or two of the countries in CARIFORUM have a utilization rate of 0. That means that no exporters in those countries are using the benefits of the EPA. Now, unfortunately, we don't have data yet on UK exporters. That's something that we're currently developing. But we do have strong anecdotal evidence from many discussions with UK businesses and also from speaking to CARIFORUM stakeholders here that the utilization gap is even bigger for UK companies. It should be said that there are sometimes good commercial reasons why a business won't utilize the EPA. Sometimes the cost of compliance may indeed outweigh the benefits. But to be honest, far more often, it's because the EPA and its related services can be confusing and hard to navigate. This is especially the case for SMEs who don't have trade policy or public affairs functions like some of the bigger companies do. Indeed, many of the exporters we speak to, both in the region and back home in the UK, they aren't aware that the EPA exists at all. So, as Minister Jayawardena has said, as well as Trade Commissioner HMTC Jonathan Knott, the UK is committed to ensuring we improve this for the UK EPA. The Minister called for a step change in our government engagement with businesses. This will require a new type of policy approach. We need to be translating policy speak into meaningful opportunity for businesses, integrating this into our trade promotion and other business support services. The UK's export strategy announced this ambition globally, transforming services to help business make better use of the UK's FTAs. But I'm glad to say that we've been a bit ahead of the game here in the Caribbean, and I want to share some of that work now. Firstly, we have rolled out a series of practical workshops with UK businesses aimed at demystifying the legalistic text of the EPA and making it meaningful for SMEs. Just yesterday, with the UK Trade Mission in Barbados, our team walked through the process of understanding tariffs, how to claim this preferential access to the region, and how to navigate other important info on the requirements for trade, such as import regulations. I'm glad to say that we've also been doing this with Caribbean businesses. We've run sessions in the Dominican Republic, the Bahamas, a number of sessions in Jamaica where I'm based. Through all of these, we're partnering with chambers and with trade agencies such as Caribbean Export. And that way we're reaching the right audience. But even then, and this is something that Deodat flagged earlier, we can only reach so many sessions through, so many companies through sessions like that. So central to this step change in engagement is a transformation in our digital offer to companies. So in that regard, we've set up a host of new resources which businesses can be guided through the process of exporting. This includes some brilliant tools on gov.uk, which are available particularly to UK companies, helping them understand what duties will apply to their goods depending on the market that they're exporting to. We've also put everything businesses need to know about the CARIFORUM-UK EPA in one place, a sort of single window on trade, light touch. I should also say that in slower time, the UK government will be spending £180 million to build a complete single trade window, which will reduce the cost of trade by streamlining trade interactions with border agencies. This is a big part of the recent digital trade principles agreed by the G7 countries last month. So this will all make it will make exporting to the Caribbean much easier and clearer for UK businesses. But as I say, we are also advancing these objectives with Caribbean companies too. Indeed, we're in fact going much further through our development support. The DG highlighted the UK Trade Partnerships Programme that was launched in the region last year. He mentioned the three components of this. Just a quick reminder, that's technical assistance, which we're providing through CARICOM to governments. The second is about improving trade and market intelligence. We're working with the International Trade Centre to provide better data and market access information. That includes specifically better information on the UK EPA. That's better information to CARIFORUM businesses. And then thirdly, targeted export promotion to selected SMEs in the region. And I'm glad to say that the UKTP is already delivering key outcomes. Through the program, we've embedded the ITC's world-class data and tools in regional websites, specifically in Caribbean Export's website and in the OECS website. The CARIFORUM website will be following soon. That provides the sort of data and market information that businesses need to take decisions to export. This includes info and further details on the UK EPA specifically. On export promotion, I mean, there's a whole host of work here. Our support is focused specifically on supporting specialty foods companies across the Caribbean and on creative services, two real growth opportunities in the region. One thing I would like to highlight is a couple of months ago, 6 Caribbean specialty food companies were supported to attend the Specialty and Fine Food Fair in London. This is the UK's leading trade show in specialty foods. I'm told that it was the Caribbean companies that absolutely stole the show that day. Chocolate and hot sauce were most definitely the order of the day. Also, for those of you watching who aren't directly involved in that program, please note that a lot of the really valuable knowledge resources that the program's generating, a report on the specialty food market in the UK, opportunities there, a number of other products too. These are available freely to you, even though you're not directly involved in the program. So do please reach out to us if you would like that information. And of course, this work on UKTP comes in the context of a wider £400 million development cooperation portfolio that the UK has in the region, and much of that support is working with eligible CARIFORUM states to benefit from trade and from the EPA. I've put a quick look ahead here. I'm not going to go through this because of time, but you know, it gives you a sense of the whole host of really valuable activities that we have coming up over the coming months, partnering continuing to partner with Caribbean Export and other agencies, as well as a number of other organizations. I haven't put this in the slides, but Genevieve and I, along with the Institute of Exporters in the UK, have also been talking about potentially developing a short course on UK Caribbean trades, hopefully through the University of the West Indies. Hope I haven't jumped the gun there, Jan. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But adding all of this up, I think the point is that there is hopefully you get a real sense of the amount of work and effort that we're putting into to achieve that step change in engagement with business. So I think because of time, I'll leave it there, and hopefully we can pick up a couple of questions as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. That was excellent. And yes, you didn't jump the gun. Glad that you gave us that little plug. I think we don't have time for questions. I'm seeing our moderator at the podium. Moderator, we have time for 2 questions. Okay, so I just wanted to go through the questions from these excellent expositions. One of the questions that seems to be coming up a lot is, what is CARIFORUM doing with respect to the input of SMEs? I imagine both at the level of participation in the negotiations, but also in terms of capacitating them to, as Nisha Glasgow says, deal with the large capacity issues that regional MSMEs really face, which is that they cannot participate in the trade opportunities. I believe Ms. Dan said a few things that are happening on the ground with respect to partnerships with entities like Caribbean Export and the ITC. But I wonder if DG Marie wanted to say anything on that. And then the second question that I would raise is, what's happening with respect to the cultural and creative sectors under this agreement? Is there any clarification on what output or outreach has been sort of already started with the specific sectoral groups that will obviously participate and have an interest in this? And then a last set of questions really relate to something DG Marie said, which is about which are the countries that have signed on, which are the countries, what is the utilization rate in which countries. I think these things were lovely little nuggets we got from the presentation. If you had any further details on what is the uptake by country across CARIFORUM, that would be really useful. I leave it to both of the speakers to give 1.5 minutes each to any of these issues I raised, and then we'll bring this session to a close. I'll start with DG Marie, and then Dan, you can pick it up.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I want to first start off by saying that the Specialized Private Sector and Trade Development Agency of CARIFORUM is the Caribbean Export Development Agency. Caribbean Export Development Agency is an institution of CARIFORUM that handles the operational matters related to trade and private sector development. So we anticipate that in time, through Caribbean Export, we will be providing more direct assistance to enterprises in the Caribbean region, in the CARIFORUM region, to take advantage of the provisions of the CARIFORUM-UK EPA. I know, for example, from my own discussions with the executive director of Caribbean Export up till as late as yesterday, that proposals are being developed now on the basis of which increased levels of direct assistance could be made available to small and medium-sized enterprises, either who are export ready or who have the capacity to export to the UK, or who are in fact already exporting to the UK. Through the ITC implemented program, we're also providing hands-on support to some enterprises in selected CARIFORUM states that are eligible for official development assistance from the United Kingdom. So in a nutshell, we are providing services through Caribbean Export. We will expand on the delivery of those services once we can get the kind of development cooperation support that is required to expand these services. And the expansion of these services will, of course, will of course incorporate capacity building and direct support for those in the cultural and entertainment industry, for which we know that the region has some advantage and capacity in terms of delivering these services on the UK market. In terms of participation of SMEs in the operation of the EPA itself, I did mention that there was a consultative committee established in the agreement. In that consultative committee, it is a joint committee between representatives of the Caribbean and representatives of the United Kingdom. We will have civil society representatives, including agencies such as CASME, the Caribbean Association of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises. We will have Manufacturers Association, we'll have the Private Sector's Organization of the Caribbean, we will have the Services Coalitions, and such agencies represented on that joint consultative committee for direct discussions with their UK counterparts on the implementation of the EPA. And that committee will have the capacity to make recommendations to the ministerial group or to the Trade and Development Committee on matters that they have discussed and which affect their own interest in terms of the implementation of the EPA. Madam Moderator, I think I've taken my 1.5 minutes.
You've done such an excellent job. Not much more to say. Over to you, Dan, to close it off.
Thanks very much, Jan. So just a couple of quick things to add to what the DG said on SMEs. I think, it's really important to reiterate that that is precisely who we're targeting through all of that engagement work that I just highlighted. Those workshops, those services online and in person, that is specifically targeted at SMEs, both UK businesses and here in the region. And the slide that I had to leave out, that had a call to action really for SMEs that are on the line today. It's really important that we have a feedback loop when it comes to policy. As the DG just said, there is a formal process under the EPA for feeding of views, but just as valuable really is the conversations that we're able to have with you directly through workshops, through our kind of day-to-day conversations, hearing what matters to you as SMEs, what are you struggling with, what do you need more help with, and I think please do engage with us, engage with your trade associations as a sort of go-between to really help that feedback loop sort of thrive. I think in terms of where countries are at, just two things to flag there. So I think at the latest count, 10 out of the 14 CARIFORUM states have ratified the EPA. We're all still provisionally applying the agreement, so it's still very much in effect for all countries. But we absolutely support the full ratification of the agreement by all parties as soon as possible. And the same goes for the matter of compliance on the commitments in the agreement. Those actions will really send the sort of signal that we need to businesses here and in the UK that we really mean business, and we're putting the measures in place to support that trade between the UK and the region. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much to both of the panelists who did an excellent exposition on the matter. Mr. Hart and DG Marie, thank you for your time, and thank you to Caribbean Export again for the opportunity to moderate you. Over to you, Dami, and thanks again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Remy, for doing such an excellent job in terms of moderating this panel. I think there was a lot of valuable information provided in terms of ensuring that the agreement is implemented properly so that we can continue to expand trade and investment. I took note that a lot of discussion was spent on the role of SMEs, the role of businesses, because ultimately they're the ones who trade. I mean, Caribbean Export doesn't trade. The Department of International Trade doesn't trade. It has to boil down to the SMEs, which segues very nicely into our final panel, which is our private sector roundtable. All of this is meaningless if we don't hear from the private sector, because it's the private sector, the ones who are going to really work and do trading under this particular agreement. So what we have done is we've put together a nice cross-section of private sector firms from not only here in the CARIFORUM region, but also in the UK as well. And we want to get their perspective in terms of how this EPA will work and can work for them in increasing their businesses. Because we all know once businesses grow, once businesses expand, it will result in increased foreign exchange earnings and increased jobs, which is at the end of the day is all we're really it's the be all end all for us, that there are more jobs, persons are earning more money and they can take care of their families. So we're gonna, in terms of our private sector roundtable, we have Mr. Deodat Maraj, Executive Director of Caribbean Export Development Agency, who has returned to moderate this panel. He will introduce the different participants. And we also have Mr. Jonathan Knott and the Honorable Darren Henry, who will also take part as discussants on this panel. So I will now turn it over to Deodat, who will take us through the private sector roundtable.
And good afternoon to everyone, and welcome again, Jonathan, and welcome again, Darren. I'm really delighted that we have with us during this session businesses from here in the Caribbean and in the UK as well. Given the fact that we need to be fairly concise with time running against us, I will just introduce the members of the panel. We have T. Sanjay Wadhwani, Director of Wanis Foods. We have Ashley Parasram, Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Fine Cocoa Company. We have Nielsen Danaby, Renewable Energy Manager, Emira Caribbean Incorporated. We spoke also about services, so it's wonderful to have Dr. Stephen Louis from the St. Lucia ICT Professionals Association, and to have Pip Witteridge, the CEO of Grove Information Systems. I intend to have a very interactive session, drawing on the expertise from our panel to get their views and perspectives, and also to hear from Jonathan and Darren during the course of this session. So I think we should go straight to Sanjay Wadhwani. And Sanjay, I mean, you've heard us speak about the UK CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement. As a business person, what do you need to give life to this agreement? And what do you think will be most beneficial to advance this trade agreement to create jobs and opportunity for yourself, your business, and for others as well? So over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, can I just apologise on behalf of Mr. Wadhwani? He was actually sick today, so I'm standing in on his behalf. I'm finance director here, but significant expertise or experience in this. I've been in this market for about 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. What we need from this, firstly, it's a clear understanding of what the EPA can deliver. And the benefits. One of the biggest challenges found so far is actually finding a clear understanding and a communication on how to implement it. And then the second part is ensuring that's rolled out, not just to larger businesses, but to the SMEs on the ground. And it's widening the opportunity for trade between the two countries outside of the bigger corporates to the SMEs, and giving those businesses chance to develop and actually step up and grow and build the wealth for themselves and their employees and the families around them. No,
absolutely. Jonathan, would you like to comment on anything that Mr. Reader has said? I mean, he's providing a perspective from business, and he has had a lot of experience in his present capacity, and he was also the finance director and then managing director of Grace Foods UK. So I mean, you know your stuff. So.
Thank you. I think a question which really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. So thanks for bringing this up so early. So the EPA, as we talked about earlier on, isn't so much about the document, but it's about its implementation, and then making sure that companies like yours, but all the companies online at the moment, can easily understand what that means. So what's changed? So my comment, and I don't think it's really an answer to your question, because I think the challenge is exactly the right one for all of our governments, the UK's, but also the CARIFORUM government, to finish this deal. So first of all, having signed it off, what we need to do all now is to make sure that we ratify the deal. We then need to make sure that each of us makes the changes, for example, in our tariffs, in any barriers to trade that might exist that we've agreed to do. And then we explain to companies exactly like yours and others on the line what that really means. So what's the new opportunity? Now, I think it's really important to start off with and to reassure Caribbean companies, CARIFORUM companies right now, that the UK has already introduced the tariff reductions that we've talked about. So this should be, I hope, a better, more interesting market, a more barrier-free market than it's been up until now. The next thing we want to do is to work with our partners in the Caribbean to help them implement the agreements that we've come to. And then the third thing, picking up your point, is then to promote this opportunity. Now, as I said when I offered a few words earlier on, what we're really counting on there is to hear from companies like yours, what is it that we need to do to help you realize those benefits, to help you understand what's changed, to help you understand what it is that makes these partnerships attractive. So, I mean, my plea, and I said I wasn't going to answer your question, but I think your call to action is the right one. My plea is that others like yourself tell us what you need so that we can do more trade together. I hope that's all right. I haven't answered your question, but I hope that's okay.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And I think we would want to transition to hear what Ashley Parastram has to say. And Ashley is at the Trinidad and Tobago Fine Cocoa Company. And Ashley, you've heard Jonathan ask the question directly. Tell me, what do you need? And you're in a good position, knowing both the UK and Caribbean markets quite well. So what do you need, Ashley? And what are some, niche opportunities for Caribbean businesses in the UK and vice versa? Over to you, Ashley. I think you're on mute, Ashley.
Thank you very much. Essentially, Jonathan, we've been around a cocoa processing facility in Trinidad for 6 years. We export to the UK. We have very established partnerships at the moment with companies such as Harrods, and it's going well. I think for us, it's really understanding with the shift of supply chains, with the changing of the cost of ingredients going up, there's an opportunity emerging for the Caribbean to basically enter into the UK market and finally be competitive when it comes to cocoa and other agricultural products. So I think for us, it's really understanding a bit more about the EPA, but also how that plays out with all the other aspects and variables that are going on from sector to sector. So with agriculture and what we've been doing, I have to say that we have been a recipient of support from the International Trade Center. They have provided us with a chef to come down and train our team to make sure we have a product that is suitable to export to the UK. So we're very grateful. That's a very hands-on engagement through this initiative that Dan had mentioned. So the idea is that through that sort of technical assistance, once we could prove that cocoa from the Caribbean can be financially competitive and is consistent, can we strengthen that sort of technical assistance to other sectors, to a wider audience, to really demonstrate how we can really enter into that market and be competitive? So I guess the question really is, how can we increase the technical support and assistance to SMEs and build on our existing track record?
Thank you so much, Ashley. And I mean, to build on our existing track record, I mean, that's an important point. And another important theme that was a recurring one during this morning's session was the emphasis on a green economy transition here in the Caribbean and leveraging on UK expertise and investors and the business community to help us to fast track that transition. So in this regard, I'm really delighted that we have Nielsen Beneby, the Renewable Energy Manager for Emera Caribbean Limited. And Nielsen, I mean, from your standpoint, I mean, and this critical sector, what would be your ask or what would be your suggestion to deepen CARIFORUM, the UK trade and investment partnerships in the renewable sector?
Hi, good morning, all, and good afternoon to those tuning in from the UK. From my perspective, Emera Caribbean Inc., we primarily operate in the trade of services realm. So from our perspective, we would be looking to, and not only us, but I would say all other entities that operate in the renewable energy space, looking for support from UK companies for services related to the renewable energy space. And that would primarily be, I think, in the offshore wind sector. The UK, if not, is not number one in the world, it's definitely in the top tier of offshore wind projects in terms of capacity installed and how long they've been in that space. And as most would know, Barbados is currently working on a framework for offshore wind investments. And that is looking at all things from a financing perspective, the right technology, as well as making sure that the regulatory framework is in place to support those investments. So as it stands today, I think continuing to leverage the partnerships that have already been forged with the UK in the RE space will be very important, and ensuring that capacity can be built here locally, because whilst the renewable energy space in the Caribbean is not nearly as big as it may be in other parts of the world. But what is important is the learnings from the UK and countries like the member states in the UK can be very beneficial to us here in the Caribbean to ensure that we roll out the technologies in a responsible way, and it is best in class to ensure that we meet our renewable energy targets that are set across the region.
Okay, thank you so much. I mean, and I'm happy that we have the Honorable Darren Henry, the Prime Minister of the UK's Trade Envoy for the Commonwealth Caribbean, here with us. And Darren, you've heard about cocoa, you've heard about renewable energy, but as a trade envoy, the Prime Minister's trade envoy for the Commonwealth Caribbean, I mean, what are your priorities to respond to increasing trade and investment between the UK and the Commonwealth Caribbean?
Well, thanks very much, dear Dat. As the British Prime Minister's trade envoy for the 12 Commonwealth countries of the Caribbean, I'm hoping that I can really help in deepening trade and investment between our markets. And I think the CARIFORUM-UK EPA is an excellent mechanism to make that work. But I would like to say that my parents are West Indian. So my dad is Jamaican, my mum is from Trinidad. And I hope that you can sense my sincerity when I say that I will be delighted at every win that we make as trading partners. In terms of priorities, certainly, firstly, I'd like to make sure that we communicate and give knowledge on what the EPA offer is. Secondly, I'd like to encourage business-to-business activity as much as possible. And thirdly, I think we'd like to make sure that Caribbean businesses are able to scale up by working with UK partners to make that happen. So I will certainly be talking to UK companies and saying not only that, you know, the Caribbean is an excellent place to come on holiday, it's also fantastic to do business with.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Darren. And I think your comments would echo quite well with all the business people who are tuned into this morning's program, because the important point is really we need to deliver concrete and practical results for people and to create jobs and opportunity, first in the Caribbean and in the UK as well. During this morning's session, we spent some time talking about technology and innovation. So therefore, it's really good to have Dr. Stephen Louis from the St. Lucia ICT Professionals Association. Dr. Louis, can you share your perspectives with particular reference to technology and innovation, and what do you see as some vital mechanisms that we need to look at to improve that trade and investment relationship in this sector? And if you have an ask, what will it be? We have the Trade Envoy for the Commonwealth Caribbean, and we have Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Latin America and the Caribbean. Speak with them, Dr. Louis. Over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to address the forum. Myself and my colleagues in the ICT Association of St. Lucia, several of us do have an export focus, and we've actively been pursuing export opportunities over the last several years. We've had some success in that. In fact, a few members are able to derive, in some cases, over 50% of their revenue from export activities, but typically within the Caribbean region. So the possibility of exporting to the UK is something that would be of great interest to us. I think there are broadly two main issues two main considerations that will determine how successful we can be. One has to do with what we can refer to as visibility, and that is, as suppliers, can we see the opportunities that are available? How do we identify the opportunities? And also, in terms of those who are potential clients or business partners, do they know of how do they know of the services we can offer and how to access those services? And this doesn't apply just to us in St. Lucia. I think it applies across the region. So those matters need to be addressed. I know there was a lot of discussion about the extent to which firms are aware of the EPA or not aware of the EPA. Some of our members are aware of it. I think the real challenge, as I think others have pointed out, is not the awareness, but operationalizing the benefits that it aims to deliver. So in terms of what we would want, we believe that there is reason for optimism, that there may be opportunities for export of ICT services. Those of us who are in the ICT field have become very adept at delivering our services remotely. So we are well suited to deliver services through Mode 1. We think that with the pandemic, a lot more firms are receptive to engaging services remotely. So on that basis, there should be, there's potentially a greater opportunity to deliver services into these export markets without the need for travel. So what I think we would need is assistance in those areas, mechanisms that allow us to better identify the potential opportunities with clients and business partners, assistance in honing our competitive advantage. We know that we cannot compete on a full frontal basis with the UK ICT industry, but we believe that there may be special niches that we can fill. So assistance in identifying those niches, and also assistance in identifying the specific aspects of the EPA that we can exploit in trying to achieve that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for raising that point. And Jonathan, I want to come to you, because what Dr. Louis said is directly relates to a question asked by a member of the audience. And this person is saying, if we had to take full advantage of the EPA, how do we as producers and exporters link with the appropriate importers to ensure that we are linked with the right importer in the UK, and what role could the UK play in supporting that outreach and that connection?
Well, thanks very much for that. And maybe I can pick up a couple other things from the contributions early on, which I think were really strong as well. Because, yeah, okay. I think perhaps there are 2 or 3 things that I'd like to share, some thoughts that I'd like to share when it comes to this, because I think the key element to all of the discussion so far, including the identification of opportunities, is partnerships between companies. So that Caribbean companies and the UK companies establish the sorts of partnerships which we were talking about earlier on. I think, Nielsen, you were talking about it when it comes to renewable energy. You were speaking in particular about offshore wind, I think. If there are opportunities in region, let us work with you and with British companies to form those partnerships. You talked about learnings from the UK as well. And I know that UK companies are extremely open, not just to explaining, but also in sharing technology, where there are opportunities here that they can open up with a local partner as well. Now, I think to come on to the second question, or the one which Dr. Louis has just made in his really super clear presentation, for which thanks ever so much. Perhaps two things there. So access to UK markets. I think there we would want to work with Caribbean governments who are in the UK through their high commissions, through their trade teams there, identifying exactly those opportunities and helping them find those opportunities in the UK, particularly with SMEs. And our new export strategy, which we've talked about already, is really targeted at those SMEs. But we want to work with Caribbean governments to try and achieve that, identify those UK opportunities, because I said earlier, good trade is good for both sides. But I do want to come back with, again, to the topic of today's summit, which is our EPA. Because I think one of the important things we must do here in the Caribbean, but back in the UK, is make it clear to the UK and Caribbean business communities that our environment's changed, that there are new chances for business to work with each other. And I think that needs to be promoted there in the UK and also here in the Caribbean with the level of detail from our first question. I do beg your pardon, I'm afraid I didn't note down your name earlier on, but going into some of those details as well. So not explaining the principles of this agreement, but here's actually what it means. And I think that's how we encourage the partnerships, and that's how we open up and take take the opportunities that are there. Let me leave it there if that's all right.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. But again, on the same sector of focusing on innovation and technology, I mean, we are delighted that we have Pep Witheridge, CEO of Grove Information Systems. Pep, you would have heard this morning's session, you would have heard your fellow panelists. I mean, to really advance transformational change and to lift the sector that you are involved in, I mean, looking at the EPA, what would you need? What support would you need, or what would you propose? Or do you have a specific question that you would want to pose to Jonathan and to Darren here? What thoughts do you have on the issues raised thus far? Over to you, Pep.
Thank you very much. Well, firstly, everyone, thank you very much for having me on today. I think it's a really exciting opportunity. I'll give a little bit of background about us so you can understand what we're doing in region, and then answer the question directly. So I run Grove Group. We're a cyber-led technology business with thousands of customers across the world, headquartered in the UK, but offices in South Africa as well. We find niche security technology solutions and take them to market before they become mainstream. So providing proper security for customers before the bad guys work out how to get through the loopholes. we first approached the Caribbean market about 10 years ago, and we had 5 or 6 customers. And our exploits into the Caribbean really took off about 2 years ago when we came on 2 trade missions separately in January and February, one to Trinidad and one to Jamaica. And it was something that the High Commissioner said that, nothing falls in your lap. This is about making introductions, and you've really got to put in the hard yards after that. And since then, we have put in hundreds and thousands of hours of telephone calls and meetings in all sorts of different ways that we can. And we've now got about 60 customers across the Caribbean, Suriname, Barbados, Bahamas, Jamaica, Trinidad, St. Nevis, banks, universities, government bodies, military organizations, etc. And it was all made, our impetus to invest further in region was a result of a trade mission where there's a very reasonable fee to come out and join it to assist with everything. But it was really down to that sort of opened doors for us, but we had to put in the hard yards to make it work. So, but my message to everyone is it's a great market to do business in. People are really friendly. They've got the money if there's a service or a product or a solution that you need, but you have to put in the effort in to win business.
Mm-hmm. But can you elaborate? You have to put the effort in. I mean, what does that mean?
You can't.
I think I can figure it out, but please spell out.
Yeah. I think one meeting. So we turned up there, and there were a whole series of roundtables, and the High Commissioner's office were incredibly helpful in helping us meet people, and they help us with responding to requests for information and delivering those on time, etc. I think the real effort comes in that helps the leaders of organizations meet each other, but actually the real work gets done by the worker bees, and that is lots of telephone calls, lots of emails, lots of product demonstrations, lots of trials, lots of technical support. It is hard. It's hard work, but it's worth it in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is quite clear. I want to go back to Ashley Parasram. Ashley, I mean, we have had a round of commentary. We have heard from Jonathan. We have heard from Darren. If it is that you have to identify one issue or to make one point, not 2, 3, 4, just one, what in your mind as a business person, being so intimately involved in the Trinidad and Tobago fine cocoa company, really is about a niche product in a niche market for a premium price. What would you say would be the highest priority from where you stand as a business person to take advantage of this EPA?
Sorry, well, Deodat, I guess to sort of distill it down to one point, UK imported 1.75 billion pounds worth of chocolate in 2020. Of that, 913 tons were from the Caribbean, of a value of around, I would say, 10 million pounds. So for me, it is how do we increase that tonnage? How we also increase the value of what we export, so it's not just beans. So very quickly we could go from 10 million to 30 million simply by in-country value-added processing and exporting finished products to the UK. So for me, it's how does this EPA take us from where we are right now to getting hold much more of that market share that I have mentioned is now more attractive to UK customers, especially those where the fine flavor market is expanding and where the Caribbean is perfectly positioned to take advantage both of our unique cocoa and also the fact that cocoa from Europe is more expensive. So that's how I distill it down.
Okay, thank you so much, Ashley. Mr. Reader, I mean, what would be, in your mind, the most important issue, the most important point that you would want to make to advance this economic partnership agreement between the CARIFORUM Caribbean and the UK from the standpoint of your business?
From our business, we're a food importer, exporter. We represent over 20 Caribbean brands. And the demand for specialist cuisine is growing phenomenally within the UK. And there's a real opportunity now for Caribbean food brands to come into the UK market if they're not here, or grow if they are here. And using a British representative, UK-based company as a representative is a big opportunity for these SMEs to enter the UK market and benefit from that wider market and benefit from the growth. Around the EPA, that's going to make it far more, or the products far more competitive for them to enter. The removal of tariffs, barriers, bureaucracy, that's all great. The thing I want to see is investment in some of these smaller SMEs. It's not just making the product and putting it in a box. It's understanding the UK market and the UK requirements to actually trade within that environment as well. And that comes from partnership, between UK business and SMEs, businesses on the ground within the Caribbean. I guess the challenge for me is from the UK, it's the help we need from the trade envoys to identify those businesses and provide that conduit between the two countries, the two areas, two regions, and to enable that communication process to start.
I mean, I think that's a very valid point, the help that we need from the trade envoys, and we have two with us. Darren, we also heard about penetrating the UK markets. I mean, you're in a really unique position in the UK, but with such close connections to here in the Caribbean. I mean, I've spent some time living in the UK as well. And our goods and our products, you find them in Brixton and other places where you have a large Caribbean community. But from your standpoint, I mean, what is required, or do we need a champion? What steps we need to put in place to make Caribbean products much more well-known across the United Kingdom and beyond the diaspora community? What role could the diaspora play in helping us achieve that?
Absolutely. I think key to all of this is relationship building in any case. And so, being able to do this sort of summit in a virtual way is fantastic with 500 people on. Let's do that, and also, meet in the flesh as well. So holding diaspora meetings is something I want to do. I've met with the High Commissioners and so on in the UK as well. But, when I speak to a Jamaican diaspora that I spoke to recently, they come to Jamaica 4 times a year. So it's going to be really easy for them to spread the word about the businesses that they get involved in. So communication is key. Linking in with all the different diasporas, I think, will be really important to help us towards our goal.
Yeah, I mean, that's really valuable, because I think the diaspora, there's a role beyond them just being buyers of products from the Caribbean. They are also champions for our products and goods and services as well. Nielsen, I want to come to you with any final comments or views that you may have. You have Darren Henry, you have Jonathan Nutt, you have other business people in the UK and across the Caribbean. I mean, in your mind, what would be the single most important point that you'd want to convey to give life to this economic partnership agreement to benefit a business like yours?
Yes, I just want to reaffirm the point that there are local businesses here in the Caribbean that do have the capacity, that do have the expertise to be able to engage in a partnership with companies out of the UK, say to develop a renewable energy project. Just last week or the week before, I met with a company out of the UK that's looking to do a renewable energy project here in Barbados, and an organization like mine, Emera Caribbean Inc., which is a multinational corporation throughout the Caribbean, and even with our primary operations in North America, we have the ability to support you end to end in the process. Today, I am based in Barbados, but the renewable energy arm of America Caribbean has a reach across the entire Caribbean. So we're not just limited to one country to work in. And in our utility operations and just our expertise in the energy sector, we do have a good, strong foundation in renewable energy that's in solar PV or in onshore wind. So organizations like mine, and I'm sure there are others out there, do have the capacity to support you. The country, of course, is open for business. Barbados is aggressively pursuing its renewable energy targets, and there is a lot of discussion going on and work at the governmental level to ensure the regulatory framework is in place to protect those investments. So we welcome it. We can support you, and we would definitely be interested in learning from the experiences from the UK to bring that here to the Caribbean to ensure that it is relevant to this market to make the investments work.
Yeah, and that's an important point, and this is directly related, Jonathan, to a question asked by a member of the audience. And Jonathan, I would like you to respond to this question. And the person says, the chapter on innovation and intellectual property in the CARIFORUM-UK EPA contains obligations to promote such partnerships and collaboration, including technology transfer where appropriate. What are your thoughts in terms of promoting that collaboration in the area of technology transfer?
Thank you. I mean, that covers quite a lot, and I wouldn't limit it to tech transfer. Is one of my thoughts here. I don't know how much time we have left, but there are a few things I wanted to share. Is now a good moment? Because I'd like to incorporate that into a slightly longer answer, or shall I wait?
I think maybe it's best to wait, and we can come back to the longer response.
Okay. So when it comes to a technology, but I think partnerships and tech transfer, I touched on this earlier on. And this is something which we're convinced in the UK must be part and parcel of a 21st century trade environment. Now, there's a little bit here around trade supporting development, which I touched on earlier on in the address that I offered. There's a lot as well about trade supporting a green transformation, a sustainable transformation. And we talked on that, and the ministers both talked about that early on as well. I think as part of the promotion work that we need to do to companies in the framework we talked about earlier on as well, that needs to feature strongly. It does seem to us on the UK side that, again, for the 21st century economies, that sharing tech expertise, that making sure that our companies know about the opportunities to partner with each other is what this EPA should be all about. Now, I'm afraid I don't have details, Deodat, which I can offer, and I don't have an insight that I can offer right now, because there's a lot of this EPA, frankly, having signed at the top level, that we need to work through and make operational. But I think that for the UK, for us, is a guiding principle. And the sharing of technology is at the heart of British business and British industry right now. That's not something new, but it's something we've got to respect. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. Dr. Louis, the sharing of technology, any final comments from your business on this particular issue or any other point you would wish to make?
Well, in a general sense, sharing of technology is always important to us in ICT, and in that you must constantly improve your knowledge of technology and its applications to remain relevant in the business. So it's always good to have the opportunity to learn new technologies that you can deploy or that you can use for your customers. I would say if I was to focus on one point to emphasize going forward, it would be the point about generating or identifying the opportunities, and whether these are opportunities with clients, the end users, or opportunities with businesses with which we can partner. There are obviously a lot of other things that would be important in the ICT businesses being able to take advantage of the EPA and export to the UK, for example, development of capacity. But it becomes a lot easier to justify the investment and the effort required to be able to do those things if you can actually see the opportunity. So I would want to encourage a focus on identifying those opportunities and actionable opportunities that can be pursued.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Louis. Pip, any final comments on a specific path ahead?
No, I think it's been very useful. I think anyone who's listening and hasn't engaged, either exporting or importing, I think it's definitely worth doing and using all the tools that there are around you. As I say, reiterate the point, you know, it's hard work that wins the day and long hours. But if anyone wants to reach out to me, I've put my email in the chat.
Okay, thank you so much, Pip. I think we will transition now to any final closing remarks, and we'd hear from you, Jonathan, and then we would hear from Darren. So Jonathan, your closing remarks, your wrap up on this particular segment.
Thanks very much, and thanks for the thoughts and the comments and the really stimulating conversation that we've had. As we've been going through, as you might have seen, I've been making some notes on my screen here. And towards the end, I was trying to pull that together into some concrete elements, because I think one of my reflections is that we can talk a lot about many things, but business is all about concrete and so what. Yeah. So I think I've got 6 so whats, and excuse me, these are slightly off the cuff, these are not prepared, but I think they stand up. And what I'm hearing, particularly from this session around the EPA, is we need to make this real. And I think we've heard that through a lot of the contributions in the session. We need to move from this being a signed agreement between governments to, and this is what it means for business, and understanding that and getting to the point where the barriers we've talked about no longer exist. So I'm hearing loud and clear that's something which we are not just talking about the UK government, but Caribbean governments as well, really must have front and center. I think the second thing which I'm taking from this is that we need to, at that point, redouble our efforts. In fact, launch new efforts to make sure that businesses understand in the UK, but also here in the Caribbean, what's changed, why the EPA is making a significant difference, why the offer, why the supply is going to be more open, where those opportunities are. And I stress offer and supply. So for a UK company, understanding that suddenly it should be more attractive to import from the Caribbean, for a UK company as well to understand that the Caribbean should be a more important, a more exciting destination for their exports or for their investment. I think the third thing, and these in no particular order, just as they came to mind here, was around partnerships. Because I think that's where we really start to unlock a lot of the opportunity here, a lot of the potential. And I think what I've heard, but as I reflected on some of the thoughts, I think that is absolutely what's going to pay off for us as a UK community, as a Caribbean community. It's making those partnerships. It's having a Caribbean and a UK company work together, whether it's on, and picking up the chocolate example, whether it's on getting up the value chain in chocolate and then finding vendors in the UK, or whether it's on the other hand here in the Caribbean looking at alternative sources of energy or more efficient uses of energy. What are those partnerships? How do they unlock them? The fourth thing I just wrote down here, hard yards, because it's the government's job for me to create the environment, to spread the business word, and then to pass on. And I think Pip was talking about, Mr. Witheridge, you were talking about this earlier on, about then picking that up and then expecting this not to be easy, but it should be significantly easier, and then to really invest in this opportunity because we know what the potential is. I think the fifth of 6 things was that companies should please be really demanding of your government and promotion agencies. And I'm happy to say the British government, the British companies are becoming more demanding of us. And that's great, that's fantastic, because it means that the interest is there and we know exactly how we can help them. I really hope that the Caribbean companies who are on the line now are going to be exactly as demanding of their governments and their promotion agencies, because all of us need to step up here if this is really going to deliver as we need it to. And finally, I wanted to do a quick commercial, if that's okay, to British companies who are on the call. Because for our Latin America and Caribbean area, we have just quadrupled the size of our inquiry hub. So that's a hub where we invite British companies who are interested in doing business with this part of the world to contact us. Even if their level of knowledge isn't very high, we have people there who can give them advice from day one, give them advice on how to develop a product or a relationship, give them advice on where opportunity lies, give them advice on how to do business, until they get to the point where they can sort of reach out and come to the region and start realizing it. So if any British companies are wondering, so what should I do next if I'm a little bit interested, we'll share this with participants, but please contact our inquiry hub, because we want to make this real. And I think that's the key big message right now, is taking potential and making it the potential of the EPA and making it real for companies. So dear Dan,
yeah,
those are the 6 things.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. 6 is actually my lucky number. Closing comments from you, Darren?
Thanks very much. I've been doing this role now as Prime Minister's Trade Envoy to the 12 Commonwealth countries of the Caribbean for just over a year now. And we've picked up that, you know, we need to be able to communicate things like the offer for the EPA, which is why we're having this summit. So there might be other things that we can do to be able to communicate things as well. And I'll be really grateful if, you know, you could tell me what you think those things are. It might be that you want to have more information or training on the procurement style and services that are available, you know, the legal framework or whatever it might be, and we can provide that sort of thing. But I don't have all the answers. I would like to listen to what you have to say. So you know who we are now. So please communicate with us, and I would like to help.
Thank you so much, Darren, and we count on your strong support and advocacy, of course, on behalf of the Caribbean as well as the UK. So thank you. You straddle both the Caribbean and the United Kingdom quite well, and we intend to certainly leverage that to deliver results on both sides. I think at this juncture, I have a very simple task, and it's really to thank what has been a splendid panel, and it was delightful hearing from business. So thank you so much, Adam, Nielsen, Dr. Louis, Pip, and Ashley Parasram. I mean, your inputs and perspectives were really very much appreciated and certainly quite valued as well. I would like to thank Jonathan, and I would like to thank Darren for their inputs and as discussants on this panel. And before asking Jonathan to give closing remarks to today's summit, I would once more like to thank my colleagues for the hard work. And when I gave my remarks this morning, of course, I recognized the hardworking colleagues from FCDO, and I neglected to emphasize the wonderful collaboration we have had with the IT and Laura and Dan and all the colleagues. I mean, we really appreciate this collaboration. And we are certainly at the Caribbean Export Development Agency committed to working with all partners to deliver real, meaningful, and practical results for our people with a focus on business and for business to take an important leadership role in building a resilient Caribbean. So with those closing comments, Jonathan, over to you.
That's super, and thanks very much. Thanks very much. And I promise I'll keep these brief. I have a speech in my pocket, but I'm going to leave it in my pocket. And I spoke for quite a long time earlier in the day as well. So I think in closing, perhaps I'd take a step back, because I think the business environment that the UK is in right now is one where we have left the EU and where we need and want to diversify our business relationships. That's the future of our country. This is global Britain. And I think as the world comes through and comes out of the COVID tragedy, the COVID crisis, the impacts of COVID as well, we're also moving into new economic, new business territory. And at the same time, in our local context, we're looking at a new business environment too. We're looking through the EPA at a very dramatically different landscape, a landscape where it's much easier once everybody ratifies, once we have that legal certainty, once we know, and businesses know more importantly, exactly what the tariff levels are, that quotas have disappeared, that barriers to entry are away. In that new environment, we have such an exciting opportunity. We also have really good links already. That's something which I, for one, haven't mentioned enough so far. That's where I felt I should perhaps spend a little bit more time acknowledging, first of all, the links which exist between the UK and the Caribbean, but also acknowledging the strength of trade today between the UK and the Caribbean, which in the years coming up to the COVID years was growing very, very healthily. Now, what we need to do, I would suggest, the UK, but also the countries of the Caribbean, is to make sure that that doesn't just persist, but that that accelerates. And that's our duty as governments, our duty and our responsibility to make sure that that opportunity is there. So in closing, dear Dan, and I think I'm going to leave it there. I hope that everybody who today has taken part is as excited as we are about this opportunity, sees that this environment is changing and suddenly it's even more exciting to do business between the UK and the Caribbean, and that we need to do it. And as I said a moment ago, that companies should be demanding of their governments in helping them realize that opportunity, but be ready to put in the hard yards that Mr. Weatheridge was talking about. Because I think when we do that, very quickly and very suddenly, we see dramatic, really positive changes. I'm back to the Caribbean very regularly, happily, in my new job, and my expectation, my hope and expectation is that every time I come back, we see significant improvement in the environment, that we see significant growth in the underlying numbers. Now, underlying numbers are very interesting for governments. It's individual companies that matter, I know. But that, if you like, is the sort of measure which I am really looking forward to. And I think this is the beginning of something. So please join this journey. Help us to make a really, really big difference, because we can do that together. Thanks ever so much for everybody online for taking part. Really important that you're here. And please be a part of this. Thank you.